dive right in, guys. Let's dive right in. Louis Alpizar is on the line. I've known Louis now for about, 8, maybe 9 or 10 years. He's been nothing other than a positive influence and a mathematical wizard in my life. He's been an inspiration. People like Louis take people who are talented and gifted with numbers, which I consider myself to be, and hone that into a real skill set that can help other people, dissecting what reports look like and why you're doing them and what you can do to help other people using those numbers and reports. So welcome, Louis, welcome to us today. Why don't you just introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Can y'all hear me now?
We can.
Okay. Now, it takes me more than 2 minutes just to say my name because I'm a Southern boy and I talk real slow. Okay. So, where do I start? I had a long career in corporate America. Started out as a $3 an hour accounting clerk. And after spending my formative years from age 10 to 18 working in a grocery store, and I became the CFO of a company at the ripe old age of 33 with only bookkeeping in high school and 1 year of college. And one of the things I learned is that when you know your numbers, it can pay great dividends for you. And it made me a good living all my life. And as one of my family members asked me once, Louis, you must love numbers in order to do what you do. I said, no, I don't love numbers. Numbers just come easy to me and always have, okay? So I went on from a CFO position to several vice president positions within the Anheuser-Busch food companies, and then became president and CEO of Campfire Marshmallows out in Salt Lake City, Utah, and then president and CEO of Leon's Bakery, which was a frozen food company in Wallingford, Connecticut, New Haven, North Haven, Connecticut. And we made frozen dough sticks for Subway sandwiches. We made 40% of their US needs at that time back in '97. We did 2.4 million pounds a week. And then I went on to work in their dairy company in Dallas as vice president of customer service. Then I went into the rail car industry and knew nothing about rail cars, but in 9 months I got promoted to run their largest division as general manager over 12 manufacturing plants, turning out those big box cars and stuff. Okay.
When did you end up getting into real estate?
Well, I married well. I see.
For those of you who don't know, Louis is married to Georgia Alpizar, our regional director. Louis is the better half, though, right, Louis?
No, I don't know if I'd go that far. I see Jim Hand there. Hey, Jim. And so I got downsized out of the rail car industry at age 55. And I don't know if any of y'all out there are age 55, but in America, when you making some big bucks and they're looking at a downturn, which 9/11 precipitated the crash of the rail car industry. And so fortunately, Georgia was a team leader in Plano, Texas, and Dick Dillingham referred me to Kelly White, who was doing all of the career visioning for Gary Keller. He says, call Kelly because Gary has terminated his COO and he may be interested in you. So I called her and she says, no, he's not going to rehire for 2 years. And she says, but we're starting the consulting program, which is now MAPS coaching. And I was the second person hired in the MAPS coaching / consulting program. Gary hired me. And within 1 year, I was coaching 100 team leaders and OPs. And when I quit in March of 2006, I was coaching 158 team leaders and OPs. And so Georgia got the regional director's job and she said, why don't you just stay home and take care of me? Okay. And I said, my pleasure. So, you know, I could not cut things off. It took me about 5 or 6 years to slow things down, cut it off.
So
And
your background, Lewis, is in numbers.
numbers and business. Okay.
Business. How to run a business like a business.
That's right. And that's why Georgia and I blend and meld so well together, because she has a business background and we get along famously. We can have high-minded exchanges about what's going on in whatever kind of business, because she's run businesses. She's owned businesses. And she's probably one of the greatest resources y'all have in the region. And
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that because I'm selfish or biased. It's just the fact, okay?
Right.
And I'm probably the second best, but that's being modest, I guess. But anyway, knowing your numbers is the key to just about anything. When I was a young man as a controller in a biscuit factory, okay, I could remember check numbers. If I touched it, I remembered it. Don't ask me why. It was my God's gift. And I used that gift to work with people. So in these tough times, there's a song by Tina Turner from Beyond Thunderdome, I think is the movie. Out of the ruins, always comes good things. So knowing that, and knowing that I have won the battle with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, what we're going through is just
tip of the iceberg.
It's just a small thing in our life. It's an obstacle that can be overcome and will be overcome if we have the patience, the perseverance, and the wisdom to do it. But we got to know our numbers. And by that, I mean, if you have a house and you have a family, the first thing I can tell you to do is look at your budget for your life. What are you spending? What are you spending on your mortgage? Has your Wells Fargo or Bank of America sent you an email or a letter saying, if you need mortgage forbearance for a while, let us know? They're not going to allow to happen what happened in 2008, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. They're not going to allow it to happen again. So if you need help, now's the time to ask it. Go through all your expenses, your cable bill. I called my cable company the other day and I said, I need help. Okay. They gave me a $25 reduction. That's $300 a year. Times 10 years is $3,000. They'll probably go up on cable or phone or whatever 2 or 3 times between now and then. But I got $25 in my pocket. Okay. Now we're sitting at home all the time. I can use that to watch movies if I want it. But if you have a housekeeper, ask them for a small reduction, 10%, 5%. Ask them for 25% if it's your lawn service guy. Ask for discounts. And when the economy comes back, let them know that you'll increase it back. When I was in corporate America, I had no problem asking for, when I was sent in to take over a company, I just call everybody together and say, okay, make a list of all your vendors, submit it to me, and then you got 1 week to call all your vendors and ask for a price reduction. Guess what? Most of them got it. I even got in shortening. We used probably 200,000 pounds of shortening a week making those dough sticks. We got like a 10% reduction. We got it on our cardboard boxes. We got it on our nuts, bolts, screws, and motors and whatever. I even got 25 cents, 100 reduction in the freight to get the flour onto the into the rail car and delivered to the plant. So don't be ashamed. Don't be embarrassed to ask people to help you.
So this is not any different for real estate agents. They just need to contact all of their vendors and ask for a reduction.
Right. So go through your life budget at home, okay? Do all that. See how you can remargin your life expense, your living expenses. Then go through your credit card statements And if you don't know what you're spending in your life, how in the world do you know how much money you got to make in real estate to fund that life, right? Because your economic model is not accurate. Excuse me.
That's okay.
I got pressure washing people outside. If your economic model does not reflect your life budget, then your economic model is flawed. And that's why you have $25,000 or $30,000 every year in credit card debt to carry forward that you keep paying on. Okay. So take the time, get you what I always call the big chief tablet and a cedar pencil, right? And sit down at your kitchen table with your spouse or your children or whatever. Go over and list all the things that you're spending money on. Can we live without this? Okay. Give me 3 good reasons why we got to have it. And if we don't have to have it, cut it. Okay. At least for 90 days or whatever till we get through this storm. And it's like, have the courage to do that. Have the courage to hold your ground with your spouse or your children or whatever, because we as human beings are all selfish. We want to keep everything we have. But here's the deal. Tough times or desperate times require desperate measures and drastic actions. And this is something we've gotten so accustomed to in America, is what I call living the soft life. And in our economy, I think there's about a 6% layer on our economy that's a false economy that has been created over the past 40 years or so with credit cards. And where it was demonstrated was back during the big economic crash of 2008 September, when the stock market crashed. All that was lopped off the top, and it took, what, 10 years for it to come back? 10 years. And now we have more personal debt as a nation than we've ever had in the history of the nation. I don't know if y'all read that recently in the Wall Street Journal. So there is room for cutting. Well, that means job losses, less pay or whatever. But if I were running the country, I'd do the same thing at the federal level. And I've had to do it, folks. I walk in a plant and I'd say, in order to keep these jobs here, everybody's got to take, I got good news and I got bad news. The good news is all of you have a job. The bad news is it's going to pay you 25% less than it did yesterday. Okay. It's what needs to happen at the federal, state and local level, because we, all of us on this call and all of us as citizens of this country, have had to live through 9/11 and the big crash of 2008. And NAFTA and China have taken 10 million jobs out of this country, if not more, and 70,000 factories, right? And we've had to re-margin our life. So many Americans have. That's why they're working 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet. You don't want to have to be like that, but if you have to, the tough do it.
Louis, you are so right. You are so right on so many levels, because I've been going through this each and every week with the market centers and at my home with my wife, with Debbie, who's sitting right beside me. And we've had to, and some of the, Louis says hello. And this was mind-boggling. It just saved money. There's things that are naturally we're going to save money because of the environment that we're in. In other words, I'm not in my car as much. Believe it or not, I'm saving between $500 and $600 a month in gas. I'm saving $200 a month on tolls because I travel from all the locations. I'm not a coffee drinker, but people at Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. How much money are we going to save on that? Some of the things, the little things, I saw this on Facebook. So if you didn't hear me say it the other day, I'll mention it again. I went on, if you have an iPhone, you go on settings, click on your picture, and there's a word called subscriptions. I clicked on it, and I noticed I had 2 subscriptions. They were both $19.99 a month. I did not even know I had. I instantly canceled them from my iPhone and saved $40 a month. Those are the things that get by and fly under the radar that our agents have to take notice, and actually those pennies will add up to dollars.
Exactly. This is, you know, a lot of people will call what you just said draconian, okay? that's what the word they used to use with me in corporate America. I'd say, well, all those nickel and dimes, you put them in a basket. At the end of the day, end of the week, month, year, you got a whole basket full of money. I don't care, call it draconian or whatever. I used to go to the meetings with 10 pages of little nickel and dime stuff. Agents could do the same thing. And back to the point I made, take your credit card statement, because I guarantee you every one of those, and you would look at them if you even match your receipts. I'm Mr. What did they used to call me in the market centers? Mr. Matchy Matchy.
Matchy
Okay.
Matchy.
My MCA in Little Rock has to send me a recap of all the credit card charges, who charged it, for what reason, the general account, and a good explanation. I review it. He has all the answers and he has all the receipts, because I'm not going to approve it if he doesn't have all the receipts.
It's got to match up. It's got to line
Got
up.
to match up. And if you're not doing the same thing in your personal life, okay, because my credit card gets changed probably 4 times a year for that very reason, because I find somebody who's made a $7.50 charge to see if they can get by with it, right? Change the card. I'm not going to tolerate it. A lot of people say, that's not. But what they're doing is testing you to see if they can get by with a $300 charge under the radar, okay?
Right.
So you owe it to yourself to do that. And then one of the things I've been noticing in the past 2 or 3 weeks, my inbox, I wake up in the morning at 6 o'clock and I pick up my phone and I say, oh God, where's all this coming from? So I've just started hitting unsubscribe, but be careful of the solicitations that are coming in, because there's some shysters out there right now that are fishing to try to get people hooked on $10 or $20 or some erroneous thing.
And these are things we don't even need.
No. My daughter used to be in the real estate business and I was her consultant. Okay. I went through her credit card statement and I said, when was the last time you used this? Never. But they said I needed it and whatever. And all of a sudden she had $100 worth of just crap, as I would call it, on her credit card statement that we got rid of. And everybody needs to go that, not just in the hard times, but in the good times. Because a lot of times what people realize is don't realize, if they do this in the good times, when the hard times come, they're sitting pretty because they've got all that cash sitting in the bank. And I also advocate having a rainy day fund, okay? Kind of like state of Texas had when George Bush was the governor. They created a $1 billion rainy day fund for disaster relief. And
more or less a reserve.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we all need that. I couldn't afford $1 billion. Maybe you could, Rich, but I can't. But it's one of those deals where there was a statistic that came out the other day that, 70% of all households surveyed said that they couldn't come up with $2,000 cash if they had to.
Wow.
Now, that's pretty sad. Okay. Now, let's go back to what you said about the $5 cup of Starbucks. Okay. Just imagine $25 a week. If you go 5 days a week, sometimes twice a day. Okay.
Right.
Gotta have it. And it's like $5 a week, $25 a week times 50 weeks is how much?
$1,250.
Okay. So let's just say nice round figure, $1,500. If you did it without Starbucks and have you a Keurig machine at home and you buy your coffee through Costco or Sam's online, have it delivered to your house, you can have coffee for 40 cents a cup. And now at the grocery store, they have these Ready Whip flavor, latte flavor.
Yeah.
Flavors. You can squirt in your coffee, and it's as good as anything Starbucks ever made. So for 50 cents a cup, now you've got something, you can put a lid on it, and there you go. You don't need that caramel latte double wiggly or whatever they call all that stuff that now costs $7 a cup. Okay.
Well, Louis, you know what it comes down to? I always have these conversations with my leadership group, my MCAs and team leaders. is basically, is it a luxury or is it a necessity? And if you drill it down even further, look at line by line, like you said, line by line on your credit card, and ask the question, is this expense bringing back a multiple of itself in the form of revenue? Because if it's not bringing you back revenue, then it's susceptible to be cut. My conversation are the 3 S's. The first question I ask my team leaders is, okay, how do you feel about me laying off staff? And they're not happy about that. That's okay. I'm okay. I'm listening. This is a forum. And then I say, what about salary? How do you feel about me cutting your salary? They're never good with that either. So the last one we come down to is services. So it's either going to be staff, salary, or services. And that's the level of severity. I like to start with the most severe because that's never the one that we want to do. Right. That's the last resort. So I said, now you're susceptible. Now you're ready to hear the message. We need to cut services to the bone. Now those services, and it's no different for if you're an agent or if you've got a team or if you're in leadership, those services genuinely are services of convenience that make our lives easier. That's why we gravitate to them. You need to cut them. That's got to be your first line of defense. So we've done that already. Next week, we're going back for round 2 because I've got to cut through services a second time. And if we have to go for round 3, then we're going to have to climb the ladder. There may not be services left to cut. Now we're going to have to talk about salary. So talk to us a little bit about the agents from their perspective. So what should they be looking at? And again, like I always say, is it necessity versus luxury, or is it bringing back a multiple? What is your feeling?
Well, they got to have a cell phone. Okay.
Right.
Now they need to look at their service they have. Who all's on it? Let's say you got 5 kids or 4 kids or 3 other people on it. Is it essential that one of those has to have a phone? Probably not. Okay. Is there any way you can go to the phone company and cut it out or cut it down or whatever? Look at the chart of accounts. I'm sure everybody has a P&L, right? Maybe 10%.
We're supposed to.
Okay. Go back and look at the chart of accounts and go through that exercise with everything. Okay. Can I make that flyer myself? Okay. Now, a lot of times that is counterintuitive to what we teach people. It's better to go pay somebody $25 to make that rather than having to do it yourself, because it's counterproductive when you could be working on more dollar productive stuff. Okay.
Right.
But it's line item by line item, back to the Big Chief tablet and cedar pencils. You've got to do it. And it's not all that tough. And when you get down to it, you say, man, I just cut $250 a month out of this. Is it essential? Like you said, if it's not essential, whack it. You can always pick it back up.
That's right.
When you can afford it. But if you wait till you can't afford it anymore, it's too late. It's too late.
Louis, Keller Williams is the land of acronyms. So I'm going to throw another one at you. And you probably already heard it. It's CRONC. Bold. Yeah, bold too. CRONC, K-R-O-N-C. And here's what CRONC means in my world as a coach and as a leader. When we're talking about expenses and cutting expenses, do I keep this line item or do I cut it? Keep or cut. The R is, do I replace it? The O is, do I offset it? The N is, do I negotiate it down? Or the C is, do we just cut it loose and get rid of it altogether?
That's exactly what we've been
Those are your 5 terms. CRONC, keep, replace, offset, negotiate, or cut. And you've got to go. The only way to do this is one line at a time, line by line.
That's the way I put my budget together for my market center with the budget assumptions. Unlike the government just layers on another 3 or 4% of what, and they get to keep it in their fund if they don't spend it. Well, that's nonsense.
Right.
Zero-based budgeting. Right, Jim? Hand?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Okay. And it's like one of those deals where if you go through that process every year and doing your budget, and then you look at it monthly as your P&L come in. My poor old MCA, for example, he says I have a better memory than he does, and I says, well, that's because I'm old. But if you go through that process, and then you parse it every month, and you know what's in there, you'll never get into a problem. So that when the tough times get here, you'll know exactly what's essential and what isn't. And I challenge everybody, because the last thing we want to do is cut people's livelihood. Right. However, I've had to make those choices in a factory before that says you got a job, but it's going to pay you 25% less because I got to ship my production to Mexico otherwise. This was when NAFTA was going strong, okay? So I lost one person out of a 275 person plant. So if it comes down to it, I think if we have to go on the Cronk method, okay, and we throw it out there and say, what did you rather do? You rather keep your job or cut that expense? I think everybody will say it's much easier, and I'll pick that slack up. Mm-hmm. So you've got to put your head down and focus. And here's the other word. Have you ever distributed the 4 disciplines of execution?
I've read it. Yeah.
Okay. Have you listened to the audio?
Yes.
The audio. The 4 disciplines of execution is primarily what I have lived by my whole life, but the word discipline comes into play in this whole process. Just because you do it this week doesn't mean you've done it for the rest of the year or the rest of your life. It takes discipline over and over and over, and it's got to be repeatable.
Right.
Okay. To the point it becomes part of your DNA in knowing your numbers, because there's nothing worse, looking at my salaries and bonuses every month in my market center, about $33,000 a month. Okay. Well, I don't want to cut anybody.
Right.
But if I have to, I'm going to have to in order to make that happen. And agents need to go through this exercise and practice discipline on a small scale, and then make it get bigger and bigger, so that everything that comes at them, a lot of times people are throwing spaghetti at them, and some of it sticks over here and some of it sticks over there. You got to start peeling that crap off. Okay. Right. So I heard that one this morning.
Did you?
Yeah.
So I want to make sure the agents are hearing your message. Not only are you saying the expenses have to be cut at work, Louis, we need to go home, bring this home, make it a family exercise with your wife and kids, and figure out what expenses can you peel away. Is it something that's bringing in revenue, or is it just an expense or luxury? Cut your services first. Services go first, right? And then work your way from there, because the last thing we want to do, because we've got some mega agents on the line here too, running teams, is staff is the last thing you want to cut. Last thing I want to cut.
Yeah, because
services, salary, then staff.
And because the staff is what keeps things running. Okay.
Right.
And I guarantee you, I've had to do it all my life. I never had a problem pitching in and rolling up my sleeves and posting books, doing whatever it took. I spent 5 months being an MCA at my own market center. Okay. But you've got to be willing to have that discipline. You got to have the stick-to-itiveness to make it happen. And it's got to be repeatable. Okay. If you don't repeat it over and over, it doesn't become a good habit. We're through the tough times. Let's go back to our old ways. But if you sit down with your spouse and your children and make it a fun exercise and give them a choice. Okay.
Love it.
We either have food on the table, or you go pay that $25 a week for ballet lessons or whatever it may be.
Right. And here's one of the things I think would work well too. So, and I know that I'm going to speak for, I see Jim and Sherry. I don't know if Kate is on also. I see Jim and Sherry on my screen, my team leaders. So guys, I'd be willing to sit down and hold a big a Zoom call for all of my market centers and have the agents come in and have you listen how we go through our P&L line by line item on the market center level. And that's a good way for you to say, what expenses do I have that are similar? Phone bills, internet service, subscriptions, whatever we have on the market center level, I can assure you, Louis, the agents have it on their side in some way, shape, or form, maybe a smaller version. Technology. What technology are they paying for when we have command that's included?
There you go. And get the MREA book out, you know, what's it, page 139 or whatever, I forget the page number. I'd have to look in my library.
I'm just going to say page 139 is the lead generation model.
Okay.
Imagine I know the page numbers by heart.
What's 139?
The chart of accounts.
Okay. The chart of accounts and the economic model.
Right.
Is a good place to start.
Yes.
And it's simple. It is not a long list as long as your body, but the long list is in your household.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, if you can cut $500 a month or $400, for example, on the cable bill, my internet, did you know they took my speed up from 300 megabits per second to 400 and gave me a price reduction?
Wow.
Go figure.
If you didn't call to inquire, they wouldn't volunteer that to you. You had to ask for it.
It's an annual exercise I do. I've done it for 20 years or more. Okay. It's just that simple.
Yeah. One of the things I did this week too is my bill came in as I'm paying my bills, before I pay them, I'm calling them up. Mm-hmm. So I took out HBO, I canceled Showtime. There's never anything good on television anyway. I'm not a real television person. And I cut out the DVR. So my wife had a DVR. Those three things plus taxes equaled $61 a month I saved.
Yeah.
$61 a month right there. $40 a month just on the services, those subscriptions on my iPhone. $100, $100 exactly, just two things.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
there's money to be had. There's money to be found. We've just got to go looking for it. And that's why it's so important to run your business like you said earlier, Louis. Run our business like a business. We are business owners. The moment we run our job as a job, we're no longer the CEO of our own companies, and then we're definitely we're opening ourselves open to unexpected expenses or things that are just not necessary.
I got an idea for a contest for you.
Sure, go.
Okay. Have people submit cost-cutting ideas for their business and for their home, and have established some sort of contest rules around it and have 10 winners, okay? And give them a $50 Starbucks card or something.
There you go, a takeout, a Carrabba's or whatever. Out there.
You know what I mean? Make it a fun exercise like they're going to do at home.
Sure. And
have 10 winners. Because how big is your universe out there in your market centers? 3,000?
Yeah.
3,000 and let some, maybe have a panel of judges. Have somebody in your market center compile all of the suggestions or whatever. And
I think that's a great idea.
Get people doing stuff like that to make it fun.
Louis, here's the only challenge or opportunity I have with that. My team leaders have strict instructions now. They're all on the line right now with us, that we have a $0 budget for meetings and meals. Zero.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I put those cards at. There you go. Louis has got them already.
I got Apple iTunes cards. I buy them when they're on sale at Christmas and stuff.
There you go.
My grandson and my nieces and nephews get little presents along the way. Okay. So do something to make it fun and get a sponsor.
Here's what John McCall just
get a sponsor.
There you go. Sponsors. Here's what John McCall just said. Get new quotes on your insurance He got a quote. He saved $500 a year just by once a year just calling up for insurance. That's simple, guys.
Homeowners and auto.
Kudos to you, John. Appreciate that.
Personal liability, umbrella liability.
Here's another question came in from Debbie. It says, how do we get the documents you've collected this week? So I've got some documents from Craig Wilburn was our host 2 days ago. Your team leaders have them. I sent them over to them. They should be sending them out to you. I just got this morning the documents from yesterday from Jeff Quinton up in New Jersey. So those I sent out to your team leaders within the last 30 to 60 minutes. So give them by to the end of the day, and they'll get those documents out also. So I'm going to open it up, Louis. Does anybody have any questions? If you want to know how to run a business like a business, you've got the right gentleman in front of you right now, Louis Alpizar. What would you ask him? This is your time, your opportunity, guys.
Hey, I must have done a good job. Nobody.
Listen, don't be intimidated, guys. He's a real person. I promise you, he's a great guy, and he's a good chef too. I mean, his food. Loves to cook.
Oh, so yeah.
What would you like to ask, guys? Come on.
Oh, Jim.
1 or 2 questions. Jim, Sherry, what do you got?
Oh, I got some questions. I was wanting to see if any of the agents jumped in first. So here's, and Louis, thank you for getting on this call. Louis, I was very fortunate when I first came into the team leader role and I could barely spell real estate. Louis was my coach for the first 2 years, and he taught me a lot on how to shift from being in the general real estate world and the way you do your businesses and your accounting to the way Keller Williams does it, where we're zeroing out our books there on a monthly basis as opposed to holding profits and carrying them over to the tough times. So I guess one of the questions, or one of the thoughts I have, Louis, is as we're going back and we're looking at all of the expenses that we're trimming, and we're trimming $10 a month here, $50 a month here, $100 a month there. Do you think there would be value in taking those funds that we're trimming and still paying those, but just paying ourselves and putting those into a wealth building account that we can use to go out and acquire additional passive income stream sources?
Great question.
Now, you talking about in your personal life or the markets?
Yeah, in our personal life. So we just saved $100 off our phone bill. And if we're in a position to where we still have enough revenue coming in to maintain our standard of living, would it be a good idea to take that $100 and just go ahead and put that, instead of paying it to Sprint, we pay it to ourselves into a wealth building account, and now we only spend that money on something that will generate us passive income?
It's a great idea. That's fun. That's a great one. Yep. I mean, you know, if it's $100 a month, $10 a month, I was lamenting to Georgia the other night about when I was a little boy working in the grocery store. The owners of the grocery store opened me up a savings account. Mm-hmm. And they only put like $5, or they'd take my tips and put them in there. And to see that thing grow into something where I could go buy myself a pair of wingtip shoes that I didn't have or whatever. Right. Okay. And you're spot on there. Spot on.
That was a great question, Jim. Mm-hmm. Sherry, you have anything?
I do not. I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'd love it.
I do want to thank Louis for sharing all of that great knowledge with us. And one of the things that I learned this week was on the cell phone and the cell phone apps, which was what Rich was talking about. If you go on your cell phone, you can see if you've got any subscriptions. But to add to that, I went on my Amazon Prime account and checked subscriptions. And there are things on there that you really don't necessarily know for $4.99 a month or $9.99 a month, and things that you don't even use, but you just kind of put them there at one point and never use them. So keep that in mind as well.
One of them is audio books. Mm-hmm. It's about $9.99 a month.
Right. Louis, I also learned something that my wife and I, we sat down and did that same exercise. And when we looked at separate credit card statements, we would see on the account that I had a Hulu account and my wife had a Hulu account also. So we were both paying for the same thing. And those were easy things when you started to compare your bank statements and really take a deep dive. What's that?
Y'all were hula hooping.
We were hula hooping. That's right. Twice. So.
Yeah, so Ashley Donnelly just added in. This is Jeff. I love this, Ashley. So do the same thing once you cap. You know, one of the things I teach in wealth building, Lewis, is once an agent caps, they're getting paid 64%, 30% to the market center, 6% to royalties. So once they cap, they're still getting, they get 100% of every commission. Take the 36% out, the 30% that will go to the brokerage, 6% to royalties. Open up another account, call it wealth building, whatever you will, and every commissioner closing from the day you cap to the day you roll over, and create passive income, build that account up, and then go out and buy, you know, a rental property. That's what I did. I have 6 of them now, and so absolutely, that's a great suggestion, Ashley, and it works. Proof positive.
Absolutely, rather than discounting your commission to somebody that talks you down.
There you go. So does anybody else, because I told Lewis between 30 and 40 minutes, and it's like 41, 42 minutes already. Does anybody else have any questions or comments you'd like to share with Lewis? Guys, if that's it, I'd like everybody to, you know, thank Lewis taking time out of his day to spend it with us. It means the world to me. He's a very dear friend, and his wife is like he said, Georgia Alpizar. We call her Master Yoda. She knows everything. Right? George is like
the whip.
She's the eye in the sky. She's the whip. She knows everything, and she gets everybody into hold them accountable. So I appreciate both of you more than I can ever express. Guys, thank you, Lewis. Thank you, everybody, and I'll see you back on Monday. Just so you know, next week I've got Tony Baroni on Monday. We've got Christina Griffin on Tuesday. On Thursday, I've got Matt Perry from the Carolinas. And either Wednesday or Friday, I'm going to have either Lance Loken and Karina Loken. So, guys, you got a jam-packed week next week with talent. Stay tuned. I'll see you then.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thanks.